The House will be in order. The prayer will be offered by a chaplain, Father Conroy.
Let us pray. We give you thanks, O God, for giving us another day. Bless now the men and women of the People's House. Call forth leaders from their number who understand that courage exercised in the fulfillment of their legislative responsibilities might cost them popularity now, but reap them praise in the future from our American descendants. May they take solace knowing that it has always been this way with great leaders. We thank you for their hard work. Give them the consolation of knowing in finding difficult but necessary solutions to America's challenges, they will have done their best work for all of our nation. May all that is done this day be for your greater honor and glory. Amen.
The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House her approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from California, Mr. Takano.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the People's House. Will you join the members in saying that the pledge to our nation's flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair will entertain up to 15 requests for 1-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Address the House for 1 minute and advise to extend my remarks.
The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, in North Carolina, small businesses are a primary driver of the economy. These businesses, like many across the country, are harmed by excessive regulation. Over the past 4 years, our nation's cumulative regulatory cost burden has increased by $520 billion. What's worse is this administration has failed to disclose, as required by law, the effects of new regulations in a timely manner. The administration is required to submit a regulatory agenda twice a year, but they have consistently failed to do so. Madam Speaker, small businesses are not given enough notice of how new regulations will affect their tough decisions, whether to cut a worker's hours or wages or adjust their business plan otherwise. That's why I introduced, Madam Speaker, the ALERT Act, H.R. 2804, the All Economic Regulations Are Transparent Act, to ensure that the administration publishes its regulatory agenda in a timely manner. Madam Speaker, the least this administration can do for small businesses is follow the law and provide notice as to what regulations are coming down the pipeline. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks and to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to commemorate an important accomplishment for our nation, as it was 48 years ago today that President Johnson signed Medicare into law, thus cementing a promise to our nation's seniors. Before Medicare, nearly 30% of seniors lived below the poverty line, and American life expectancy was 70 years old. Since then, the poverty rate has plummeted all the way down to 7.5%, and life expectancy has risen to 78.5 years. Mr. Speaker, Medicare is a sacred Madam Speaker, Medicare is a sacred promise that we made, and it is a sacred promise that we must keep, despite the House Republicans' addiction to slash-and-burn policies. If the House Republicans got their way, they would replace Medicare with a voucher system, removing the certainty of what seniors will receive. These are benefits that have been earned and paid for, but turning Medicare into a voucher system will result in reduced benefits and increased health care costs. The Democratic Party, however, believes that working families should not lose their life savings in their golden years to pay for health care, and they should not suffer without treatment due to an inability to pay for medical services. The Democratic Party believes that seniors deserve the certainty of Medicare. Madam Speaker, on this day, the 48th anniversary of Medicare, I pledge to uphold that promise that we made to our seniors and never turn my back on working families.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to dedicate my time to one of America's greatest warriors, Colonel George E. Bud Day, who passed away this past weekend. A veteran of 3 wars, a POW at the infamous Hanoi Hilton, and a Medal of Honor recipient, Colonel Day set the standard for service to country. A patriot in the truest sense of the word, Colonel Day never stopped working and looking out for his brothers in arms. After the military, he spent 40 years as an advocate for his fellow veterans. Colonel Day was a loving husband, a father, a grandfather, and someone I was honored and very humbled to represent here in Congress. Our community and countless others will miss him, his unwavering perseverance and optimistic, and Colonel Day's legacy will endure for years to come. I ask that we keep him and the entire Day family in our prayers. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Illinois seek recognition?
To address the House for 1 minute.
The gentlewoman from Illinois is recognized for 1 minute.
I rise this afternoon to celebrate the 48th anniversary of Medicare and Medicaid and the security that they provide for seniors and persons with disabilities, half of whom live on less than $22,000 total a year. And half of all seniors before Medicare had no insurance at all. Listen to my constituent, Nan Anderson from Evanston. Quote, "It was a tremendous relief to become eligible for Medicare. Basically, I'm a well person, but have had some costly procedures, all of which have been covered now. Currently, I'm recovering from a spinal fusion. If it weren't for Medicare, I never would have reached this point. Without the surgery, I would likely have been reduced to a dependent person. Now I know that I will be able to walk normally and unaided for several years," unquote. We made improvements in Medicare and Obamacare. Lower drug costs, free preventive services, fraud cutting, and improved quality. And Medicaid pays for 40% of all long-term care costs. Today, I voice my support for Medicare and Medicaid and my vigorous opposition to benefit cuts that will harm those who depend on them. And I yield back.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, the President says the country is being distracted by phony scandals. A more accurate statement would be the President is using phony distractions to cover up the administration scandals. Here are 2 of them, fast and furious. The ATF, with Justice Department knowledge, smuggles 2,000 automatic weapons to Mexican drug cartels. Americans are killed, 200 Mexican nationals killed, including 2 police chiefs and even a beauty queen. No one's held accountable. Nobody goes to jail. Lower-level operatives blamed. Eric Withholder held in contempt for withholding evidence from Congress. The administration wants us to forget their fiasco. Benghazi, Libya, 4 Americans killed by terrorists. The United States refuses to send help during the firefight. 4 Americans left behind. No killers ever captured. The administration misleads the American public and blames the attack on a video, not the terrorists. No one goes to jail, no accountability, lower-level operatives blamed. The administration wants us to forget their fiasco. Are these distractions and phony scandals the President is talking about? Well, tell that to the families of the murdered Americans and Mexican nationals. And a Navy SEAL put it best, phony scandals don't come home in body bags. And that's just the way it is. I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition? The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, today I am introducing the bipartisan Wounded Warrior Service Dog Act of 2013. This important bill aims to address a demonstrated need among our veteran population. With so many veterans returning from war bearing both physical and emotional scars, we must do all we can to provide treatment that works. On a recent visit to the National Education for Assistance Dog Services, or NEADS, located in Princeton, Massachusetts, I heard amazing stories about how service dogs are helping to treat veterans with physical disabilities as well as those suffering from post-traumatic stress. This nonprofit organization has connected many deserving veterans with service dogs over the past few years with incredible results. In recent years, the demand for service dogs has grown significantly, and organizations like NEEDS are having trouble meeting high levels of demand. To address this shortage, the Wounded Warrior Service Dog Act of 2013 would create a competitive grant program for nonprofits that train service dogs for use by veterans. It is my sincere hope that through this program we can better connect our veterans with service dogs in an effort to ease their transition into civilian life. I urge my colleagues to support this bill. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back his time. What purpose does the gentlelady from North Carolina seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, Mr. Speaker.
The gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's not surprising that many Americans think the federal government is out of touch. Washington is filled with unelected regulators who've never owned a small business or created a job. These regulators are disconnected from the cost their rules impose on small businesses, which amount to roughly $8,000 per employee each year. Regulators fail to see that each unnecessary, duplicative, or contradictory rule they impose forces American entrepreneurs to waste time and money satisfying government instead of hiring new employees or investing in their families. The American people are asking, where are the jobs? And they're asking for a government that makes sense. No one is asking for more red tape. House Republicans don't just talk about jobs, we defend them and we take action to make it easier for job creators to grow and hire. Cutting back Washington's red tape is part of that work. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. What purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Ask for unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a member of the Save the Climate Caucus, I want to applaud President Obama's commitment to address global climate change. As the concentration of carbon in the atmosphere climbed past 400 parts per million this past spring, which is a level not seen since before the dawn of humans, when sea levels were 75 feet higher than they are today, we are facing the potential for irreversible climatic consequences that could trigger mass extinctions and endanger the future of humanity. So it would be irresponsible for the President not to address this clear and present danger. With the powers the President has been granted under existing laws, he has taken the responsible course, insisting upon limiting carbon emissions at existing major sources like coal-fired power plants, promoting renewable energy development on public lands, squeezing greater efficiencies out of household and commercial appliances, motor vehicles, and government facilities operations, and working with other nations on a global strategy to address climate change. For the sake of future generations, I do hope that the Republican majority will take a more responsible role in helping us to preserve the future of a more livable world.
The gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I rise requesting ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
The gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, many of us were surprised on July 2nd when the administration unilaterally suspended the employer mandate in the Affordable Care Act. And then 3 days later, many of us were surprised when they suspended since there were going to be no reporting requirements under the employer mandate, how were people going to be judged as eligible for benefits under the Affordable Care Act? Well, we would simply take their word for it. Self-attestation became the watchword and buzzword in the administration. And then last Thursday, again, people were surprised that the Department of Health and Human Services Inspector General's office is going to lose 20% of its staff between now and 2015. Well, wait a minute. We're going to a system of self-reporting, self-attestation, but we're cutting the staff of the office who's going to see that the funds are properly spent. Oh, by the way, all the while we're going to be increasing the funding for the so-called navigators, people who are going to sign people up for the Affordable Care Act under their own self-attestation. It seems like we're going the wrong direction here. We do need to keep an eye on these funds. They could go out the door inappropriately, and we owe it to the taxpayer to be more vigilant. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Washington seek recognition?
I'd like to address the House with unanimous consent for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to speak on the importance of college affordability. This is very personal for me. Growing up, my parents struggled financially, but with student loans and financial aid, I was able to go to college and get a great education. I would not be standing in this chamber today otherwise. I am pleased that we will be voting on a bipartisan bill this week that will reverse the doubling of student loan rates that took place on July 1st. The bill is a compromise, so it's not perfect. It doesn't include all the protections that I believe our students need, like lower interest rate caps to keep costs down over the long term. But it does reduce interest rates for over 7 million undergraduates taking out a loan this year, and it will save a college student with Stafford loans $3,300 compared to today's rates. This bill is a start, but it isn't enough. I call on my colleagues to continue working together on ways to bring down the cost of college for working families. Doing so will expand opportunity for all, spur long-term economic growth, and strengthen our middle class. I yield back.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition? The gentlewoman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I rise in celebration of the birthday of Medicare and Medicaid. 48 years ago today, President Johnson solidified our historic promise to all Americans. This is what he said: "No longer will older Americans be denied the healing miracle of modern medicine. No longer will illness crush and destroy the savings that they have so carefully put away over a lifetime so that they might enjoy dignity in their later years. No longer will young families see their incomes and their own hopes eaten away simply because they are carrying out their deep moral obligations to their parents and to their uncles and their aunts. And no longer will this nation refuse the hand of justice to those who have given a lifetime of service and wisdom and labor to the progress of this progressive country." Madam Speaker, let us honor this promise to our parents, to our neighbors, and to our children by protecting Medicare and Medicaid, making sure the care it offers is there when it's needed the most. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House and to revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 118 million Americans, seniors, low-income families, the disabled, Americans all rely on Medicare and Medicaid services in one way or another. These services guarantee benefits that give our nation's most vulnerable peace of mind and increased quality of life. Today, we proudly acknowledge almost 5 decades of Medicare and Medicaid services. While most service providers are honest and law-abiding, it's recently come to my attention that there are a few that have affected the delivery and integrity of services to the people who rely on these programs. Congress has the power to change that. Today, on the 48th anniversary of Medicare and Medicaid being signed into law, Congress must recommit itself to safeguarding and strengthening of America's Medicare and Medicaid systems. The promise of Medicare, the morality of Medicaid, must never be compromised, no matter how hard the political battles are. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today marks the 48th anniversary of the Medicare program. It's had a tremendous impact on the American public and the quality of life of our seniors and our kids. On July 30th of 1965, a fellow Texan, President Lyndon B. Johnson, signed Medicare into law, a program that at the time was considered incredibly controversial. And at that time, about half of our nation's seniors didn't have health coverage. Today, in Texas, more than 3 million seniors, including our parents and our grandparents, rely on this program for crucial medical care. law has allowed our seniors to live with the peace of mind that health coverage will be available to them in their golden years. And now it's just as vital to the long-term health and security of Americans as it was in 1965. We need to continue to demonstrate our commitment to those who have built this country and strengthen Medicare for future generations. And I'm very glad that we've done things like to start to close the Medicare donut hole, that seniors are starting to save money in their prescriptions. In the first 6 months of 2013, more than 1 million seniors with Medicare have received at least one free preventive service. Our seniors have earned this through a lifetime of work. Thank you so much, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until approximately 3 p.m. today.
And when they do return, about 3 o'clock Eastern, they will take up their version of the 2014 Transportation